and welcome to my hand building demonstration we're going to do for today. So we're going to be building this berry bowl, this colander right here. It has a little cutout on the bottom so it can seat in this little seated drain tray. So when you rinse your berries, you can put it right into the refrigerator and it'll drain into that. So I've made a template, and you'll get a Xerox copy of this template, and what you're going to do is you're going to cut out all the pieces. So we have 1, 2, 3 pieces. There's more pieces than that to this project, but we're going to start with these 3, and each one says how many you're going to make. You're going to make 1 of these, you're going to make 4 of these, and you're going to make 4 of these. There's also a bottom, but I'm going to make the bottom once I get the frame of the thing put together, the frame of the berry bowl put together. So I have 2 slabs. This slab was a single slab that just came out of the slab roller, and when it comes out of the slab roller, it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. It's about the height of my flattened pinky, so that's a little bit much. I want it to be about half that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out these slabs so they're the right size, the right thickness, and then from there we're going to get started. And right here is about the thickness I'm looking for, just a little bit thinner than what. Just compressing that slab, getting all the little wrinkles and everything out of there. And also when you compress your slab, it kind of helps the stability of the pieces. You can work with your clay right out of the bag if you'd like, or you can put it in front of the fan for just a little bit till it gets leather hard. This clay has been sitting out for a little while, so it's got a nice kind of leather hard consistency. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the tools we're going to be using today. I have a couple of these little tools. These are to make punch my holes with. You can get these on Amazon for very inexpensive. I think I paid for like 5 of them, less than $5. Something else, if you get boba tea, those straws work really well. And a little combination tool that you can make is if you have one of those boba tea straws or a thicker straw and a wooden dowel that goes behind it, so you can always pop out that little thing on the end. I have a little loop tool like this, and after I make my holes, I'm going to go through and ream out either side so it just makes the hole look a little bit nicer. We have a rubber rib. I use the red Cheryl rib. These are the softest of the Cheryl Mud Tool ribs. I have 2 of them, but they're both the same. You will only really need 1. I have a paintbrush to add my slip. I have my slip right here, the Phoenix slip, which is a clay body I'm going to have most of you, the new students at least, working with. I have an X-Acto knife. This X-Acto knife is one of my favorite non-clay tools. I use this X-Acto knife all the time. I like it much better than a fettling knife. Some people, go back and forth, but I like this. I think I can cut my shapes very, very cleanly and very exactly with, that's why it's called an X-Acto knife. This is a Xiem, X-I-E-M tool. This tool I think is about $7 or $8. You can also cut things on the bias. We're gonna be cutting these shapes here, the sidewalls of this bowl with this, but you could also use a knife if you don't have a tool like this. But this tool is really handy. I think it's about $6 or $7, and they have different ones. This one cuts a 45-degree angle, and I think this is You know, there's one I think that goes into 6, and then there's another 45 that sits, or it's a little bit more than a 45. But anyway, that's this tool here. And a rolling pin. So I'm going to get my pieces first, and then we'll go from there. So I'm trying to find a place on the clay, not too close to the edges. The edges tend to flatten out a little bit, and I want all of these to be hopefully exactly the same thickness. So I like to cut my pieces, the initial pieces, right out of closer to the middle of the slab. I'm gonna lay that down, and we'll cut one. And I find when I'm cutting out these pieces that I want to kind of overcut. I learned this from mat cutting, so wherever I have a corner, I want to make like a little X. So I know that it comes out nice and clean. So I'm going all the way plus a little bit past, all the way plus a little bit past. I'm going to do that as I cut all of these pieces. Now I'm just going to set this upside down right next to it, so hopefully it's exactly the same height as the one I had before. So coming all the way up and through. Just past, and then I'm overcutting that corner. I'm gonna set my scraps over here to the side because I can use them for some other elements later of the piece. Now I'm gonna pull these out. They seem like they're a good thickness, which is nice. And what I want to do also, once I pull those out, I'm going to get all that canvas texture out of there and just kind of go back over them, make sure I have any boogers, any other little blemishes of my clay out of there. So I have all 4 of those. I'm going to go ahead and cut these just while I'm here. I made this one a little bit bigger than the one that I have as an example. I thought that tray was a little tight, so I made it a 1/2 inch bigger all the way around. Or it was 3.5 by 3.5, now it's 4 by 4. These little paper templates will start to move on you a little bit. If you have a template that you really, really love, you can always use craft foam. And craft foam is great at, you know, being able to be used over and over and over again. And that craft foam is I think available at Walmart and some other places like that. All right. Okay, now I have most of the pieces I'm gonna need, the ones I have in my template. Everything else except for the bottom of this right here and the little wedge and stuff, we're gonna be making that out of our scrap pieces of clay. So I wanna make sure these are over here and I have access to them because we are gonna be using them. Okay. Also, here's another tool that we're gonna be using today. I don't know if I talked about this, but this is a scoring tool. This scoring tool basically has straight pins with the ends cut off. They're shoved down into a little wine cork and then glued with Gorilla Glue. You can also wrap toothpicks together. That also works well, or you can just use your needle tool. It's just, this is like using 4 needle tools and makes everything a little bit faster. Okay, so we're gonna take our first one. I'm gonna take my tool and I'm gonna go onto the right angle, the 45-degree angle. How this tool works is I want the flat part to be flat on the table, and I want this flat part here to be flat up against my piece of clay. So I'm putting it flat up here, abutting it square next to my clay, and I'm pulling it flat towards me. Another little tip when you're doing this, put your thumb on the very end so that when it gets to the end, sometimes the clay will want to stretch a little bit, and we really don't want that. We want to be able for it to just break off cleanly. So I'm here. I'm making my 45-degree angle. And I'm putting that right into my thumb, and when I hold it with my thumb, it doesn't rip at all. Do the same thing on the opposite sides, and then I'm going to do it to all 4 of my pieces. I'm also going to do the bottoms of these. So 1, 2, 3, like a U shape. So we'll have an angle here, here, and here. And I'm going to do this one also, since I did do it before. Make sure they're all going the same way and are on the same side. Okay, so now these are going to fit together like this. I'm going to do it upside down so that the base, the bottom of the thing will kind of end up holding its weight. So what I want to do is take all 4 of my pieces and I'm going to score on these outside areas. So when I'm using one like this, I'm going in one direction and then up and down. I don't want my scoring marks super deep, but I do want it pretty roughed up and going in a lot of different directions. It seems like the more roughed up it is, the better that connection's gonna hold. Okay, now I have all 4 of those scored. Now I'm gonna take my slip. That should be plenty of slip for both sides. pretty good. I'm gonna flip this over. Have a look. Okay, looks pretty good. Make sure those seams are nice. Now when I have it flipped over, I can kind of flatten out these walls too, so they're a little bit more even. And now the next thing I want to do, maybe I'll take some of these scrap pieces here and I'm going to make some worms. And I'm going to go from top to bottom, from top to bottom, from top to bottom to reinforce all those themes. So I'm making myself a worm in, what's that, about the size of? It's like a size of maybe red vine licorice, if you know how big that is. And I'm just sitting that right in the seam just for a little bit of reinforcement. And I'm just using these edges that I cut off the 45-degree angles of. To make my little thing like that, and then I'm laying it right there into the seam. And as I lay it in the seam, I'm starting from the bottom, I'm letting it go in there, and then as I go up to the top, it's gonna pop out, even if it's the same size or smaller. As you press in, it's gonna sink right into that seam, and it's gonna extend. Our bowl shape. I'm gonna use a bowl shape. I'm gonna set it on top of this piece over here. Seems a little thicker, and actually this part, the thicker the better. So if you want to save a little piece of your slab that's directly from the slab roller that's a little thicker, because we're gonna double it. We're gonna put one on top of the other. Put one right here. And as I'm doing this the second time, I really don't think you need to bevel those bottom edges. I don't think it's necessary. We could have just left them flat. So I have that there. Maybe I'll take a pencil. And lightly trace around here. So I have a square like that, and then I'm gonna cut it square, and I'm gonna cut it bigger. So I have one, and then I'm gonna cut one more that's exactly the same size as this one. That's nice. And now, because I want this bottom to be a little bit thicker, I'm gonna get that to where it's square. It's right there, so it's almost the matching one. Now I'm gonna score this whole entire bottom and this whole entire attachment. And I kind of have some little gaps in there from that 45-degree angle, and I'm just going to put some worms in there to give it a little bit more stability. A Watt tool is also known as a wipeout tool. I have a few different ones. You can also get these pretty inexpensive on Amazon. I'm going to go back through and get all those little attachment marks and just make it a little bit cleaner. At this point, while I build my catch tray, I would probably set this in front of the fan so it could stiffen up just a little bit. And I want this to be pretty stiff before I put the holes in it to make it a colander. And similar to those other pieces, I'm gonna cut 45 degree angles, again with this side of my X-Seam tool with my thumb here. These pieces, kind of a U shape on all of them, 2 on the ends. And 1 on the bottom. So ideally it'll sit like that. All right, so you kind of see how it's going to go together, but we are going to slip and score all of these pieces. So everywhere you have an angle, you're going to need to score. I'm just going to go ahead and do it all at once. What I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to put a rim, like the rim I have here on top of that. I just think it makes it look way more finished if you add a little rim on it, and we're going to do that right now. So what I want to do is I want to cut a nice long strip. All right, I have these strips here that I saved. I'm going to take these strips like that and I'm going to roll them very thin. Ideally, I want these strips about the thickness of a piece of Trident gum. And then I even wanted about the I'm guessing an inch. Let's measure. We have a ruler right here. A little bit less than an inch, maybe just 3/4 of an inch. I always just eyeball it, but I guess it's good to know. So there, and then I'm going to cut another one there. Okay, so I have one. I want them to be a little bit longer. Strips of what looks like kind of gum. So when I go to make my attachment, if I don't do it in a certain way, they're not going to overlap correctly, which means like 2 of them are going to be uneven if I go over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. So I found the easiest way. So I'm scoring the entire top to make that attachment. I don't score the little pieces. They're just a little bit too thin, and the way that you lay them over, you may not even need to score. but I want to anyway, just to make sure that they're nice and sturdy. And the slip here on the top to make this attachment. And then what I'll do is I'll attach 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and that way I don't have any kind of weird overlapping where it's not even. So I just slightly want to bring this over and hug it. Once I do that, I want to use my finger and just really make sure that it's sitting right on top of that slab. And if I have a little extra coming over the top, just take my little razor and lose it. This one. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing over here, but these I want to overlap. To the very end. Yeah, that one works good. Make sure it's squeezed nice and tight on that lip, and then come back over so it sits very, very tight there on the very top lip. So now we have our bowl, and I have my little catch. Now let's start doing make some holes. So for my first hole, I'm going to make this one just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go right in the middle, and how this works is I just kind of go in a circle and spin. And voila. Right. But what I do want to do is make a couple little channels. So I'm going to put my finger right here so I don't stretch the clay. And I'm just going to go 1, make that a little deeper. And I'm just going to go like in a cross. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take my tray here. I'm going to wet the bottom of this just a little bit, maybe with just a little bit of slip, just barely. I just want it to make a mark more than I want it to do anything else. And I'm going to sit this as close as I can to the center of my tray. Looks good. Nice. Okay. Now the little mark there with a cross. Now, I'm going to take a piece of clay. I'm going to come over here. I have a little bit wetter clay. And now I'm going to make a coil about the size of a pencil. I'm going to make 4 little things that are about, I guess I can use my ruler and say, just about a little bit more than an inch, maybe 1.25 inches. And now I'm going to make a seat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when the berry bowl sits in there, it won't rattle around. I'm going to mark this with a pencil lightly. And then I'm going to make sure that that works. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my little Watt tool here to kind of clean out some of those boogers from underneath. However many holes you want to do, it's up to you. I'm doing the same on this side. But also know the more holes, the more weight you're taking out of your piece. And sometimes the lighter it is, the nicer it is. So now I have all my holes, and now a little finishing technique that I learned from a fellow potter was to take your little loop tool, clean it off, and then I can finish these off a little bit nicer. Same thing on the outside. It's going to create a little ridge and some boogers. I'm gonna just let that dry, and then I'll take a tool like this and I'll just get rid of it. It's way easier to do when it's a little dry, so I'll worry about that at the very end. So other than finishing out these little holes, you can also use something like that to kind of finish them, to make them a little bit nicer. But we have our tray, we have our colander. Our colander seats nicely on the thing. You have a catch tray, so you can rinse your berries, put it in the sink, and put that right in. You'll be ready to go.